I just read my 1000th volume of manga. Thousands? I'm more shocked that I've never even done this video on the channel yet. Hello all of my otaku friends, my name is Prof Otaku, and welcome back to my channel. Today is a special day. I'm going to show you guys my top 10 manga of all time. Obviously, this list has changed since I've started reading. It's actually changed within the last 2 days, believe it or not. But I did want to go ahead and throw this video out there. And who knows, maybe next year this can change and I do this again. But for right now, these are my top 10. So stay tuned. Now before we start this top 10, I just had to put some series in here that didn't make the top 10. They're all ongoing series that I can see myself putting in the top 10 in the future. So first up is Vinland Saga. I read 4 volumes of this back in like early 2020 or the end of 2019. And I just stopped reading it. I have no clue why. I loved Planet Test. This was super enriching to read. This prologue, the first arc, was absolutely incredible. It's on my radar. I'm going to read it to completion up to volume 12. I know I'm going to like it, and I feel like this definitely will be in my top 10 at some point. Next up is 5 volumes out right now. Blue Period, released by Kodansha. I have spoken high praises of this. This has a perfect mix of everything. Education, drama, character development, legendary pacing, and a really unique premise with the boy wanting to be a painter even though he had never been a painter in his previous years of schooling. This is just so well done, and this should be on everybody's shelf. I cannot wait to see how this continues to progress. Next up is a manga series that I didn't know I was gonna like as much as I do, and it really surprised me, and I think it'll surprise you too. That is Layback Camp. There are 10 volumes out right now with an 11th on the way. This is just the most wholesome, slice of life, relaxing manga you could read. It's really cool to see Japan and all the different landscapes out there. It's super informational about camping, and all of the characters in here are really well written. The art style is super unique, and this is just a really unique, different manga to have on your shelf if you are looking for something a little bit different. Next up is Spy X Family, or Spy Family. There are 6 volumes out right now with a 7th on the way. This is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, ongoing Shonen Jump series right now. This is so well done. Anya as a character is my favorite. She is absolutely hilarious. Good mix of comedy, action, shonen jumpiness. This is just what I like about it, is that it's so different in the Shonen Jump lineup, and it's executed very well. And so I definitely think this is one that you should pick up if you're not into the dark shonen type of stuff. You're looking for something a little bit more lighthearted. Next up is, of course, everybody knows this, One Piece. I had read up through volume 32. I did not put this on my top 10 because of the way the Skypiea arc went, but obviously I have a lot more of One Piece to go. Up until a couple days ago, this was in my top 10, but when I self-reflected, I just couldn't put it up there yet. The first 23 volumes were absolutely incredible. One of my favorite things that I've read ever in manga, but this did take a little bit of downward trajectory. Will it continue to go up? We'll see. And last but not least, to round out this honorable mention, is a manga I've only read 1 volume of, but that is Yotsuba. And in this 1 volume, I had never ever laughed so hard, and that's why it's here in the honorable mention. This will be in my top 10. I know it will. But when Yen Press decides to reprint these volumes, then I could go ahead and read it. I love Yotsuba as a character. I love this premise. This is a manga I know I can recommend to adults and children alike. So definitely get on the Yotsuba train. There are reprints coming very soon. So definitely pick yourself up a set. There are 15 volumes out, with the 15th volume just being released a couple months ago. Alright, now that we have the honorable mentions out of the way, let's get started with the top 10. These are in order, and it is a mix of ongoing and completed series, with the majority of them being completed series. So first up is a series I am reading right now. I just finished volume 11, but it's good enough for me to go ahead and put it in that top 10. I don't know if it's going to go up or anything, but it's going to stay in this top 10 for right now. And that is Dorohedoro by Viz Media and Q Hayashida. Dorohedoro is about this world called the Hole. You have these magic people called sorcerers who come into the Hole and practice magic on the humans who live in this hole. In this world, you have two main characters, Nikaido and Kamen. Kamen is a man who has a lizard head, and Nikaido is a girl and who creates gyoza. And together, their goal is to find out who Kamen, the lizard guy, really is and how he had this reptile head come to be. What I love about this manga is the artwork is dark, it's detailed, and it's beautiful. You've got fantastic characters, you've got fantastic pacing, you've got a variety of different stories, but it always tends to keep you enriched in it, and it never seems to get distracted. So this is a manga that should be on everybody's shelf, like any of these manga, but definitely Dorohedoro. I know there are reprints coming, so yeah, this is really, really good. I've been enjoying the read so far, and I cannot wait to read more. Next up is a manga that's out of print and it's hard to find, so I don't want to recommend it because I know it's going to be tricky to find, but it is one of my favorite seinen shonen series out there, and that is Lucifer and the Biscuit Hammer by Satoshi Muzukami. You may recognize this mangaka because they also wrote Spirit Circle and Planet With, and they're coming out with a new manga. I'm not exactly sure what the name is, but I will throw it up here as I edit the video. The basic premise is you have these group of 12 people who are trying to stop the god from using the biscuit hammer to destroy the world. That's it. I know it sounds absolutely crazy, but believe me, it's actually really good. I did do a whole review of this manga on my channel way back at the beginning, so I will link it up here. Check it out if you want some more details. The artwork is basic artwork, but it's done very well. The action scenes are drawn great. What really makes this manga a top 10 manga for me is the story, the world, how detailed everything is, how well thought out Satoshi Muzukami just paces the story and makes sure that we understand what's going on. It's not confusing at all. It's a light read, but it's a fun, serious read at the same time. So this is just such a great, different shonen battle seinen manga. So I highly recommend you check this one out. Next up is a manga that's controversial just because of the way the manga is written, but the anime adaptation obviously gets rid of all these controversies, and that is Made in Abyss. I am up to date on this. What makes this manga absolutely fantastic, like a lot of these manga in this top 10, is the world. This is the best world I have ever read in manga, for sure. Made in Abyss is just so well thought out. It's so messed up, but it's so deceiving as well. You've got these kids who live near the abyss, and in this abyss are treasures and artifacts, and it's up to these orphans, these children, to go into the abyss and get these things. The issue is, when you go down, there's no problem. But getting back up is a different story. You can get hurt. Lots of bad things can happen to you. It's pretty messed up. What I love about this manga is that it is a page turner. You keep reading this and you go, oh my god, I just have to keep going. I just have to know what happens. Every layer that they go to, there's 7 layers, every layer they go to brings a new set of challenges and characters and lore that just makes you sit back in your chair and go, what the literal, you know? And it makes this such a great read. The anime adaptation does a great job with this, so I highly recommend you check this one out. Next up is a manga that I don't currently have on my shelf because I am waiting for the collector's hardcover edition, which keeps getting delayed like every 5 months, and it's really bothering me. That manga is Silent Voice. Oh my goodness. It's just
absolutely beautiful. So this manga is about a boy and a girl. The girl is deaf and the boy is a bully. He treats her absolutely terribly in grade school, and it gets to the point where she ends up leaving the school, and it's really, really heartbreaking. Fast forward a couple years later, the boy is now in high school. He regrets his actions. He's a changed person, and he's walking down the hall one day and he sees the girl that he bullied, and she's deaf. And so it's about this kind of reconciliation story, bringing tragedy into a new light as this boy is trying to make sure that he can not only forgive himself for what he did, but repair this relationship that he has with this girl who is deaf. What I love about this manga is that it teaches you a life lesson. It not only makes you reflect on bullying and the terrible effects of it, but it's also about reconnecting with your friends, creating these lost connections and fostering these friendships. Not only that, but it's also a great viewpoint into the deaf community and the struggles that they go through every day. I've never seen the anime movie, but I heard the anime movie is absolutely heart-wrenching, and I feel like if I did watch it, I'd probably cry, but because it's Kyoto Animations. But that is to say, the manga does dive a little bit more deeper into some of the other stories that the movie just couldn't touch upon. So I highly recommend you check out these hardcover collector's editions that are coming out. It's going to have a little bit more content that we've never seen before in the Silent Voice universe. And I just think that this is a manga that every kid and every adult should read. It's a great starter manga to open your eyes into what manga can teach you. Next up is a manga I've talked a lot on this channel, so I'm not going to talk about it again. That is Sweat and Soap for the number 6 spot. I have a review on my channel about the first 5 volumes, and I also have my overall analysis of the series in my top 10 rom-com video that I just did last month for Valentine's Day. Go all the way to the end. It's number 1. And it's number 1 for a reason. And I will just say this, if you don't want to look at those videos, it's the perfect encapsulation of a healthy relationship, and it's really fun for adults to read because it's a good balance of funniness, seriousness, the accurate depiction of a working adult relationship, but it's also got some steamy stuff in here too to just kind of appeal to, you know, the adult audience. So yeah, this is just a really fantastic manga at 11 volumes. The ending is great, the artwork is great, and I think the story, for the most part, is pretty well done. So now we're into the top 5, and boy is it hard to put these in order. And really, a lot of these can be interchangeable with the exception of the top 2. But let's start with number 5, and that is 20th Century Boys by Naoki Urasawa. So 20th Century Boys follows the group of boys in their childhood. They have a fun boys club, and they create a symbol to symbolize this group. Fast forward several years later, they're all in adulthood. There is a murder, and at the murder scene is this symbol that these boys created for their gang back in when they were kids. So they all come together as adults to figure out what does this symbol mean and why is their childhood symbol being used to represent this cult and what these murders are going on. So this is a mystery thriller. It spans 22 volumes, and then you've got 21st Century Boys, which is an additional 2 volumes to kind of help wrap things up. Of course, with Naoki Urasawa, you are going to get some of the best storytelling out there and some of the most immersive world building out there. Yeah, like any Urasawa work, it is going to be a slow burner, but with 20th Century Boys, what I really liked was that even though it is a slow burner, every volume had something to bring to this mystery. And you're putting all these pieces together, and then it goes in a different direction, and then it goes in a different direction, and then it goes in a different direction, and you're just like, what in the world? This is just not what I'm expecting. Urasawa continues to just one-up you at every turn with the craziness of this world that he's depicting, and it's really messed up. But this is why I think 20th Century Boys was one of the most interesting and honestly a lot of people's favorite Urasawa work. Now I will say the reason why I don't have this any higher is because of the ending. You know, Urasawa does have a problem with his endings in manga, so I mean there's that. Does this wrap up very well? You can say it's debatable, bad or good. I think it's just okay. but up until the ending, God, it's just the best story. Story-wise, number 2 or number 1 of all time. I mean, really, I was just absolutely entranced with it, but I can't go any higher because the ending was the way it was. But anyways, it's Urasawa. I'm an Urasawa fanboy. He's my favorite mangaka of all time. I highly recommend you pick this up. For the number 4 spot, I have my only sports manga on here, and one of the earliest manga that I've ever read, and that is Haikyuu. This is 45 volumes long, and it just finished at the end of 2021. This manga, like any Shonen Jump manga, has a pretty simple premise. You've got a boy who's really short, and he wants to be a volleyball player, and he's in middle school, and nobody wants to play volleyball, so he's got this really small club. Anyway, he's got a rival in middle school, and they really just butt heads. And then he gets into high school, and the rival that he was fighting with in middle school is on the same team as him now. And it's their journey, this Kurosano team, to get to nationals and win the gold. I actually played volleyball in middle school. I really loved volleyball, and I loved playing it, and this made me bring back a lot of memories of playing volleyball. But what I love about it, and I think that a lot of people can agree with this, is the cast of characters. You've got a ton of different teams, tons of different teams, tons of characters. But the mangaka manages to give each team and each character such distinct personalities, and it makes you care about many different characters on many different teams. You know, there's no best boy in here. I mean, yeah, there is a best boy, like, according to your opinion, but the mangaka does such a great job of making best boy whoever you want, and they give you the opportunity to enjoy that character at many different points throughout the series, which I really, really love. You could say that there's an issue with the pacing, and some of it could be a little bit slow. I'm looking at you, training arc. But that is to say, the artwork is fantastic. It's really a unique art style. I really like the character design, and a lot of people don't like the faces or anything like that, but I really do. I also love the action and the flow of the volleyball games. A lot of times with sports manga, it's hard to feel the action because you're not watching it, you're reading it. But this Haikyuu does a great job with showing the flow of a game and showing where everything is going, and it's a lot of fun. Next up is my favorite slice of life series. Now this could be replaced with Yotsuba. I know it's going to break my heart if it does. But this is Barakamon. There are 18 volumes. This is released by Yen Press. It is out of print pretty severely now, which is devastating. I want more people to read this because it's so good. So this manga is about our main character here, Sei Honda. He is a young calligraphist. Yeah, that's right. And he lives in Tokyo, and one day he gets really angry at this competition and punches the judge. So his dad says, look, you need to chill out. We're going to send you off to an island, a rural village in the middle of nowhere. And he goes to this island to continue to work on his craft. But there are children in the village, there are old people in the village, and they want him to be part of this rural lifestyle, but of course he can't adjust to it. So it's the hijinks of him going into this new community, and the community embracing him as the city boy, or Honda Sensei. What I love about this manga is that it is just a perfect encapsulation of a slice of life series. It's episodic, but with the episodic nature, there's an overarching storyline. There is continual progression with all of the characters. There's never a volume that creates a dull moment. When we add characters into the story, they slide in very well and they enhance the story. But with the Slice of Life series, the episodic nature of it can cause issues if some of the episodes are boring or not that funny. And Barakamon does what it does well, is that it nails each episode. It's all super different, and all the characters are really funny. This is one that I binged and I never got bored of it. There are a couple issues with this manga when it comes to just adding unnecessary things that when you look at the whole grand scheme of it, you just go, well, why was this in here? But this is just one of my favorite things in the world to read. I will always have this in my collection, and I just think it's a really unique and interesting premise for a slice of life. If you could get your hands on it, please read it. You will not regret it. It's also one of the only manga that made me cry at the end because, the ending was just so good. So for the number 2 spot, I went with GTO, or Great Teacher Onizuka. This is a manga that I read in September, October of 2021. And oh my gosh, this was so good. Now, before I even dive into why I like it, obviously this is super out of print. I mean, all my top 3 series are all, you can't get a hold of it ever. And I'm sorry, I wish people could get a hold of this. It is released digitally on Kodansha if you want to get a hold of it. But if you want a physical print, I just don't know if this is ever going to get another one. So if you have no idea what GTO is, it's about a guy named Onizuka. His goal is to be the best teacher in Japan, but he wants to go into the school system because he's kind of a bad boy. He's kind of a pervert. He wants to fester on the girls, which is just terrible. And then you've got the students at the school who just want the worst for Onizuka. They just want him to fail, and they're gonna bully and beat the crap out of him to get him to quit. But it is a heartwarming tale of creating great connections between students and teachers, how delinquents are great characters and how they can be reformed, how kids are just misunderstood and they really do most of the time have very good intentions. And it's also a depiction of school life in Japan, some of the issues in our education system today. I mean, it is applicable today, even though this was written in the 90s, but it's about how education really hampers sometimes the development of children and having them become successful adults. This manga is one of the funniest things I have ever read in my life. What I love about this is that there are many arcs. It's a 25 volume series, but it is so diverse. There are so many great scenarios. Onizuka is probably my favorite main character in all of manga. He's written so well, even throughout all of the other side series that I have here on my top shelf. But Onizuka is just great, and I just love this whole premise. I just think it's executed well from the beginning to the end, and I think that this is a manga everybody should read because you're really going to take something away from this in terms of, you know, looking and reflecting back on your school life and also how children are today. So my number 1 manga of all time, and for those of you who've been on the channel for a long time, you know what it is, but for those of you who are new to the manga community, this might be kind of an unheard of manga. This is Billy Bat by Naoki Urasawa. So Billy Bat is a very complex story, like any Urasawa work. You have our main character here, Kevin Yamagata, and he is an American comic book author, and he writes the story of Billy Bat. Well, one day some detectives come in, this is after World War II, and they say, hey Kevin, we saw Billy Bat on graffiti in Japan. And Kevin goes, whoa, wait a second, that's impossible. I mean, I created Billy Bat. So anyway, Kevin goes over to Japan and he finds out that there's a Japanese mangaka who had Billy before him, who created Billy. So Kevin's like, well, how did I come up with the idea of Billy? And basically the story goes way deeper into this character of Billy and Billy's influence on society throughout the generations. The whole idea of Billy Bat is how Billy has influenced historical events from anywhere from Jesus Christ's crucifixion to the Kennedy assassination to the moon race to 9/11. And so Billy Bat dives into all of that and these historical events and how they have changed in a really peculiar way because of Billy. Now, this manga is not perfect. I actually gave it a 9 out of 10. And here's the reason why. Because Billy Bat goes on a hiatus for several years. Naoki Urasawa stops writing Billy Bat around volume 14, 15. And then he comes back and he does the last arc. And the last arc has a very different tone to what the previous setup had been. And the first 14 volumes are basically this one idea that goes, but then, in my opinion, it fell a little bit flat. And then there's a hiatus, and then the ending just knocked it out of the park. This is actually the only Urasawa work where I finished it and I went, that was a great ending. Now, basically, why won't this get published in English? And that's because of the reference to Disneyland and the company Disney. Billy Bat as a character grows and grows and grows until it becomes basically an enterprise, and there are correlations with the Disney company, which is why English-wise this just won't get released because of copyright issues, and probably Disney would be pissed. So if you can read the scans of Billy Bat, I highly recommend it. I think it is definitely the most complete story of Naoki Urasawa. It will keep you on the edge of your seats. The premise is super interesting with comic book characters and just comic books in general, but also to see historical events illustrated by Naoki Urasawa and to see them changed up in a little bit of a different way is super unique and super high tense situation. I just cannot get enough of this manga. I can't wait to reread it. It's so good. So that is it for my top 10 manga of all time. I can't wait to see what the next 1,000 volumes brings. I know this list is going to change, and it's getting harder and harder to kind of just place where things go. Overall, the list has stayed pretty much the same in the last 6 months with the exception of a couple of additions. But, you know, I haven't read some of the big heavy hitter series yet, like Vagabond or Berserk or Grand Blue Dreaming. So, you know, I know it's going to change. But this is my list for now. If you have any opinions on the list, or you'd like to throw in your top 10 or your top 5, top 3, leave it down in the comments below. I'd love to create a discussion. As always, if you liked the video, please hit that like button, tap the subscribe button, hit that notification bell so that you know when more of my videos come out. And I will see you in the next one. Take care now. Bye-bye.